wants the road, but not past my house. Cool.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Here's another. Got one more.
Yes, all you guys have got your taxes paid, so we can turn the lights on.
Turn the heat up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat. Yeah, it's crazy.
Everybody ready? Stephen? Good to go. Okay. Welcome everyone to the April 15th meeting of the Cosac. Our agenda today, we have one item, correct? Any changes to the agenda? No. Any questions or suggestions on the agenda, committee members? If none, then without objection, we'll adopt the agenda. And so I think we'll just jump right into a update from Stephen, if that makes sense, Stephen.
So we've seen this application a couple times now. This past couple of weeks, I sent out a scoring sheet and have the results that I felt like would be pertinent to go through today. And so with the scoring sheet, I actually think the only one that we haven't heard from is Reagan. I don't know if I ever got your scores.
Well, I handed it to you the one day.
Oh, I think you did. I apologize. I completely spaced that.
Do you want to get that in before we look at it?
Yeah, it's probably back at my desk though. I'd probably have to go run up and grab it.
Want me to go get it?
Unless you feel comfortable knowing what your scores were.
I know what my scores are pretty well.
Yeah, so we could enter those in just here.
Okay. What's the first category is what?
Protect scenic vistas.
13.
Preserve open land.
Near gateways.
Or near gateways, thank you.
15.
Okay, maintains agricultural heritage.
15.
Maintains waterways.
That's a 15 again.
15, maintains wildlife habitat.
10.
Allows for public access.
3 or 4. It was low. Put 5.
Okay. And then any distinguishing factors, and this one was out of 10.
Okay. One shot. It's once in a lifetime deal.
Okay.
For open space in the farm because of the farm history.
Okay, so would you say what number?
Yeah, 10.
10. Yeah, sorry.
No, that's fine. Okay, let me pull this over and I'll recalculate averages. I apologize about that, Reagan.
Okay.
Can I ask a question while you're doing that of the group? Some people had scores on allows public access, and I may have missed something. I understood there was no public access allowed, but there was scores there. So I just was wondering if there's some clarity on what public access is allowed.
Well, they talked about having the right of way along the road there.
Was that on the property? I thought it was going to be in the highway, in UDOT's access. And not that this makes a difference on how I feel about the overall project. I just thought maybe there's something that I was missing on the public access on the property itself.
As I understand it, the highway trail would be on UDOT easement. Then there's a question about
There's a little section there on the north.
the easement roadway that goes west off of the highway, but that's not part of the application, but.
And it's not part of the property either, correct?
It is on the property, but it's not.
The access from the highway right-of-way over to, I thought, was along the property though, that goes over to where it would connect by the river. Is that not the
I
case?
thought that was,
On the north end?
On
I
the
thought that
north
was on county property.
Well, it's being farmed, and there was a discussion about would there be any problem of using that old easement, or
And that's not part of the applicant's offer to the county, but it's something the county is asking for. Well, I don't know where
I
the
don't know that there's any,
negotiation.
I just think we would want to clarify that there's,
Yeah.
whether there's access or not, given that if I miss something.
Yeah, so,
As
Just-
presented, there is not public access.
correct.
Okay.
So I think somebody could assign a score there for their own reasons, whatever, regardless.
Yeah, I just think it would help if like, this is the type of thing I think it'd help if, like, if there's some understanding that I'm missing, that I should have scored differently, then that would be helpful.
Okay, so, sorry, I'm ready to go, want to talk about these scores, whatever the group is.
Yeah, I think so, or maybe just to tidy up that discussion, how does the county perceive that northeastern corridor?
Yeah, so, I can only speak as far as staff's perspective.
Yeah, staff or attorney
Um,
perspective as far as that goes.
So as far as staff is concerned, the applicant hasn't proposed allowing any trail easements that traverse through the property.
Okay.
There is currently a section on their property, or where they're currently farming, that's in an old right-of-way. You can see right here. So prior to their application, staff had instigated a feasibility study to connect the Ridgeline Trail System with the trail system in Logan with their soccer park complex and eventually the river trail. And when we approached the property owner, they indicated to us, or they expressed to us that they were not willing to dedicate any trail easement to us at that time. And so we came up with this alternative solution where we felt like we had the right to go and to make that connection through. There is a couple, so the idea is right now, the trail through their property is planned to go along the river. However, our alternative is to go along the right-of-way where our surveyor and the engineering firm that's doing the feasibility study has found that there is likely adequate room. There's not enough of a park strip or buffer for UDOT to consider it a trail necessarily, but they will consider it like a wide sidewalk, which meets their standard, or what we can do. And then to go through this property here and then connect into the Alder property, which they have indicated to us that they are excited and want the trail. And so this was our alternative solution. Like I said, we came out with this alternative solution prior to the application. Since the application has came, and the applicant can speak a lot more to this, but they indicated that they are concerned about trail cutting, traversing through the center of their property along the river, because they believe it would interfere with their agricultural practices and invade privacy issues. And so they're nervous about people and trail essentially providing a barrier between their different parcels. So if they have to push cattle to one side or another, or if they have to do any type of agricultural operations, there would be people there, and also concerned about people trespassing and essentially having access to pieces of their property that historically haven't been available to the public. And so those were the concerns they brought up. There might be more, but that's kind of a summary from what I remember of our conversation. And so what our opinion is that, well, there's this piece of property that's north, that's not part of the application, that's an old right-of-way, that we feel like we would already have the right to put the trail on. However, we don't want to get bogged down in a legal fight over this. There's actually recently been some changes to right-of-way law within the state for when a right-of-way is considered abandoned and not abandoned. And so we're currently investigating that right now. But in the meantime, like I said, we want to make this trail connection. We feel like it's a really important trail connection, not only for recreation, but also for transportation. As any of you have lived in Nibley or south, there is not a lot of good bicycle or pedestrian corridors that are available to the public to come north into the rest of the valley. And so we feel like this is a key piece of infrastructure and something on our master plan that the county has indicated that they want. So from a staff's perspective, we want to make this connection because we feel like it is the county's money that's helping pay for this. And we feel like we have a master plan and we don't want my opinion is that we don't want to see county money interfere with that master plan itself. Though I do think it is, the concerns brought up by the Furman is a reasonable concern, and if we can find an alternative route, like we talked about, that could be an answer to that problem. However, like I said, that is staff's opinion and not necessarily those of Cosac or the council.
Stephen, can you scan out just a little bit?
Yeah.
So the dotted line on the right is just going along the side of the highway,
Yep.
using the highway as a bridge or pedestrian?
So,
The bridge on the highway?
so what we do is there's enough room to build an underpass under that bridge. And so essentially what would happen, and it's a little bit hard to see on
Okay.
here, we would go under and then come up on this side. And
Going
so,
in front of Judge Vale's
Yep.
property as well?
yeah, so the Vales have also indicated they're not willing to participate at this time. As far as the county attorney's opinion is, I included that in the updated staff report. He felt like it would be reasonable to make that a condition because part of these funds were geared for the creation and preservation of trails. And so he felt like if that's what the county wanted to do, a condition of receiving these funds could be that trail space would be added, and he didn't have any legal concern about that. But like I said, now it comes to the COSAC, or committee and council to make that decision.
If I understand what the county attorney is saying, and by the way, I just want to clarify, like, I didn't put points to the public access because I didn't think there was public access. That doesn't mean that I don't support the project. Although I'd love that access, but I respect, and I think Chris brought up to me at one point that we have to look at it's not a conditional type of a deal that we're setting up here. This is valuable for open space, it's valuable for all the other reasons. I think it scored like a 60-something for me, and that was a good project. I consider that a good project. I think we're gonna end up kind of finding where that is. I'm more give a room for some upside in the future of other projects as well. But I think two things come into play. The public access, it would be interesting to understand if there's something other public access that we're going to be grading, just more for someone to say, well, this one got points for public access and they weren't letting anyone in their property, why didn't I? Just clarify what that means. And then number two, I do think this alternative is important. It sounds like it may or may not be an issue, but this does create an important alternative on a master plan that I think hopefully would be a win-win between the county and the landowner. So I'm not sure how we would go about that, but specifying it, that might end up being in the council. We just put that in a recommendation and the council addresses that or whatever.
Yeah. And it's important to note this is the first phase, and so some of those details I wouldn't imagine would all be figured out at this point. For instance, if we were to require such an alternate alignment, even if we didn't know that alternate alignment today, or even if it closely matches this, we'd solidify that all in the next phase too. I think now it's really important to establish what the expectations are for that second phase of application, if it is approved and move forward to that point.
Are there questions?
With this further explanation and more information, now that I have a little bit more information, I would need to adjust my score when it comes to that open space piece. And I had allotted a 5 out of 15, thinking that the north piece was going to allow a connection. But if that's not, a score is a score. So if you could remove mine from 5 to 0.
I think that's yours, right?
Yes, the one with 5, that's me.
Okay.
Do we want want to stay on trails? I have a question about, there's quite a difference on the gateway scores. And I think it comes down to different definitions. And I don't think it's different opinions. I think we're just reading the words differently. I gave that a 0 because it is not physically located on one of the gateways, and that's what I understand that category is for. I mean, the entire valley can be seen from the gateway.
Likewise.
But I expect that that's, the zeros reflect that. The 15s and the 10s, I expect reflect not a specific location at the gateway, but maybe blend into more of the scenic vista thing. But that's something where I expect we're not on the same page as to what that category means. And if we were, I'd be happy to relook at my score if we want to do it the other way, but.
Again, I scored it a 0, but I still think the project is a good project as a project, so.
I do too. But
I don't want that to reflect,
Yeah.
again, a 60 or whatever I feel is high.
My understanding was the gateway things are those listed 5 or 6 physical locations and within a mile of the county line where we would secure properties so that people didn't build that up and we couldn't see the valley when you entered that. That's my understanding. If that's not what that category means, then I would rate it differently.
I specifically gave it some points because the view there at USU, you know, if you look to the southwest, you can see the entire parcel and it's a beautiful open space from that view. So that was my score reflection. But it's not near one of the valley gateways,
Yeah.
but seen from.
And I'm wondering, does that blend into the first one, protect scenic vistas? What I'm wondering is, do those mean the same thing or do they mean different things? And I took them to mean different things.
Likewise, I also took them to be different, like you're either in the gateway or you're not, and otherwise, you know, you're part of a scenic vista. In this case, it's right on the highway, so it's hard not to be part of a scenic vista.
There's two things that this got me thinking about. One is, as I recall, and I have been there, because it's open space, it allows a nice view to the Wellsvilles and other property. And if you can see it from the different places, I'd like to change my score from 12 to 14 based on that.
For the protect scenic vistas?
Yeah. And particularly if a trail kind of went along there, if it's blocked from other views by other buildings that end up along there, that would be a place where you'd have more of a view.
You said 12 to 14, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So just so you know what we're looking at, this first line represents the average and the second line represents the total. And so we can see, to help summarize kind of what we're talking about, like this is a good example where you see your average and total may communicate different pictures based on how some people scored higher and low. I don't know.
And I don't think, you know, everybody has to score each category similarly for us to say, you know, this is legit or something like that. I think there's, like everybody in the county, we all have diverse opinions, but it is important that, you know, at least we have a basic understanding of each. And one committee member may still, with that understanding, score it very differently from another committee member, and that's okay. The other thing I would say too is, you know, at least in the past, when we were, you know, implementing projects and scoring them via LISA, the LISA program that we've talked about in the past, you know, I think it's going to be very similar to this process. There will be no 100-point projects. I mean, those don't exist. But the range of 70s and 80s is going to be a high score for a project. I think when you average them all together or whatever, that's going to be a really high scoring project, maybe even into the 60s for that matter. And so that's not unusual. I think the one other thing I would say, because I know we're, you know, some of us are hung up on the trail thing, like, and this is my personal opinion, right? But like, the bond, wasn't a trail master plan implementation bond. Like, it wasn't set aside to build and fulfill the vision of the master plan of the trails system in Cache County. And so I'm not comfortable holding a project hostage for those reasons. If a landowner under the open space category says, at this time, we're not interested in that, and for these reasons, I don't even care what the reasons are. Like that, this is a landowner initiated process, and what they want matters. And there is going to be funding for trails and implementation of trails and easements and that sort of thing that comes from this project. And if a property owner comes forward with an application and says, I want to allow public access, great. I mean, if all other things being equal, their project is certainly going to stand out amongst others. And so I don't get hung up on it too much. I mean, I too would love, you know, a connecting trail from Nibley to Logan along the Blacksmith Fork River, but I am not going to let that hold up my support for a project that I think ticks all the other boxes off pretty well. So that's just my opinions. So.
I guess I'd like to come back to the gateways, but while we're on trails.
Yes, sir.
I would second that. You used the word hostage. I thought about using that. I thought, was that too strong? But I've never been a fan of using a master plan as kind of a strong arm over a landowner who wants a subdivision or who wants something else. I think the point of a master plan, in my view, is this is what the county wants. The county should arrange its resources to facilitate this. When it has money to spend, it should spend it here. But we shouldn't tell somebody that they can't build a building where the neighbor can build a building, but you can't build a building because we drew a map that goes through your property. I've never been a fan of that. If somebody wants to acquire that property, it's probably for sale. So I would rather consider them separately. That's why, you know, I gave fairly high scores as I count them on everything, is 0 on public access because it's not part of the application. I would love it to be part of the application. I don't think a sidewalk along the highway even meets the qualities of the master plan or the UDOT quality. It doesn't meet the qualities that a trail user probably looks for. I'd really love to find something that's off the highway. And that's why I think I mentioned in an email, maybe something just inside the boundary could be made as part of the offer here from the landowner that would not be along the river. That's really problematic, the landowner, but something just along the east side that would be off the highway, would give a little bit of a buffer zone between trail users and the highway, but maybe wouldn't interfere so much with the ranch operation. And that might get more funding from the county, possibly. It would get a higher score from me. It would probably get a 15 from me there, and that might reflect in, you know, a 25% county match rather than 15 or 20 or however the council decides to do that. But I'm not a fan of having side conditions on things. I think it ought to be all integral to the application. And if it's not in this application, there could be a separate open space application for a trail along there where the county might just purchase the strip. And that could be a separate thing, but I don't like the idea of conditions.
Claire, I agree with you. I think on that, if that was to be done, the inside, I think that would be Stephen's group approaching the landowner and coming to us with a trail application that they want to purchase that separate from this.
Or if the landowner wanted to roll it into this application as an easement.
I think the piece on the top, I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to in terms of, I think that's a clarification of something that we would want that clarity prior to a transaction. Just, I mean, there's unclarity there, and I think it's important to have clarity as we,
And I'm not sure how to get that. Either the county has the right of way or they don't. If it's a legal issue, I kind of hate to have that built in as a condition of the application.
but the only way that that usually gets clarified is like that, well, you would have the only person I think that would challenge that right away would be the current landowner. And this would clarify that, and then it would clarify that right away long-term, right?
It would clarify it, but it would be the landowner giving up a possible piece of property that maybe there's not clear title to by somebody else. I mean, it's no different than saying, you know, we want.
I've just seen
we
this
want
done
20
in
acres out
a,
back somewhere. It's just a
anytime there's a
condition.
development, usually you're trying to clarify these things before you put your money up for something.
Mhm. Yeah. But if it's not given willingly, and the bond mentions willing landowners, if it's not given willingly, then it's just not part of the application.
Well,
And we value it accordingly.
but we're starting in a gray area here, right?
There's another option was,
Is it the landowners?
if we go 50 feet further north, we're talking to a willing landowner who might be willing to give an easement for a trail that would exactly parallel what we're talking about.
But technically, doesn't the county own?
We don't
Well,
know.
it's up to the
Right.
county
The county is not 100% sure.
to enforce that, yeah.
Yeah, it would technically be Millville's right of way too, because it's within their municipal boundaries.
Oh, Wellsville's right away.
Or Millville.
Millville's right away. Millville's right.
You had a comment?
Yeah, I just have a comment as somebody who's already receiving input from the public, that public funds, they want to have some type of public access. So to say we can't take that into consideration when we do this, I think, because that's the type of feedback that the elected officials are gonna get as well. And so I think it's good to have that discussion here, not just at that later point, so that there's not that ambiguity later, because that's 100% of the feedback I receive. People support this project, but they want to have some type of public access in exchange for the public funds. Again, it's a nebulous thing, but I think we should probably try to define that a little bit more before it goes on to the council.
And I've heard the same thing. I've had people approach me and say, you know, no public money without public access. I guess
But
my thought
think
is,
it's best negotiated, I think, in this.
it'd be good if we can.
Yeah.
It'd be good if we can.
I
On the other hand, if this application came in and it just happened to be a half mile away from the trail master plan, we wouldn't even have this discussion. It's the trail master plan that triggers
Well, the
this.
fact that there's a trail that ends here and a trail that starts here.
Exactly.
And this is the piece of land in the middle.
I
think
know.
we can still have that conversation though.
Yeah, it changes the conversation, it makes it more urgent,
Yeah.
and it probably raises the stakes.
I think if your understanding of the bond that got passed is, as you just described, that will kill 95% of anybody who's thinking about applying for this project or for this funding. Like, it is not. I mean, as you know, you hear from private property owners all the time. It's not,
It's finding
people,
that balance, right? We can't just say, hey, you're gonna try to still maintain this land while everyone's using it. We gotta find that balance, I think.
I think we're risking, more or less throwing out the baby with the bathwater. If we're gonna say that if your property is shown to have a trail on it from the county's master plan, we expect you to give an easement or a right-of-way for a trail. I think that'll be a very challenging scenario to bring forth meaningful projects. I mean, I think if we all zoom out and look at this project within the context of the area that's surrounding it, you know, this is it. This is your last chance to conserve any open space within these communities of any substantial importance. And if we're gonna require a trail, I can't speak for the landowner, but I don't think that he's gonna pursue it personally.
You know, I talked from the beginning that I liked the idea of a budget for the trails. In my mind, that was always $2 million. I mean, it's one of five things in it. You could argue it'd be 4 million, but I mean, I just have always had this 2 million. I think that 2 million is a trail, in my mind, a trail connection money, and that would be a separate, I'd love to strong arm on this, but I don't think we can necessarily. But that 2 million would be, you know, this would be a piece of, some piece, if there was willing access, that would be something that we would, have that conversation on. Meaning, hey, oh, you want to conserve this land? Yes. You want to give us trail access? Yes. There's a sum of two components.
A separate application, maybe, that might clarify
Separate
things.
application.
If, there's, most everything's available for a price, but this is a historic piece. Maybe it's not available for a price. Maybe a strip just inside of the highway is not available, but maybe it is. And that would be another way for the county to acquire something better than a sidewalk along the highway. That just,
Can you, yeah, and I
really
can
don't like that.
even envision what you're saying, and I've seen those where you have a little green on your left, you have a little green on your right, and you're coming down along that, and then maybe it rounds that piece onto the easement, and that, we've just amped it about 5 notches up from you take
Yeah.
a sidewalk for part of it.
and
But-
you can see the river, you can see the trees,
If you
but you're not breathing the exhaust and you're not
Yeah.
face to face with 60-mile-an-hour traffic.
Yeah.
If that's an option for everybody to consider
Yeah, I
as a
think
negotiation.
maybe for example on, for,
We're not interested in negotiating on that at this point in time.
for, you know, as a real world example of what a multi-use trail looks like next to a highway, Bear Lake is a great example in Garden City, asphalt paved trail. It's sometimes within like 3 feet of the travel lane, and not ideal, but I mean,
But not the
these
worst.
commuter type trails can happen, and it's not, maybe none of us would choose to do that trail for recreational purposes, but somebody who works in Logan and lives in Nibley might just jump on it to ride to town or something like that. And those kinds of trails have a role and are important, and, you know, yes, are immediately adjacent to the highway, and they're fundamentally safe and so on and so forth, so they can be done.
It's a connector, at the very least, as horrible as it is, and I wouldn't probably want to ride it, but it connects two very important, you know, trails potentially, so I guess it's better than nothing, in my mind. I would never choose it, but it's better than nothing.
But if you're sitting there in Millville and you wanted to take this route that took you out and then eventually connected to the Logan River Trail, and the Logan River Trail we keep extending out further, if you've got to do that for a quarter of a mile to get back on what you want, that's worth it.
And I agree, the sidewalks is better than nothing.
Right.
I agree, 100%. But maybe a missed opportunity, but maybe there's, if that door's closed, it's closed.
It's worth it.
And then-
And it sounds like it's important to bring it up now, because once that's in conservation easement, that goes away, right? We don't have an ability to go back.
Not on the property within the boundary.
Yeah.
Now, the piece you're discussing that's being contested is not within our application. That is a separate conversation from the one that we're bringing forward today.
Is that not within the legal description?
It is not.
It's not on,
Oh,
that's what I'm saying, it's not on,
It's on the legal, okay,
the landowner's
not
name
part
is
of the
not
application.
associated with that piece of property.
okay.
It's being farmed, but it's not,
Yeah.
That's, I didn't know that. So,
yeah.
that
So
makes
it
it,
is-
that makes a difference.
Yeah, it's not within the boundaries of the actual application. It is adjacent and is currently being used for agricultural purpose, but it's not within the boundaries of the actual application.
is it within the boundaries of the parcel plat at the recorder's office?
No, it's its own piece.
It's on right-of-way piece.
Correct.
It has a plat number. Or just
It doesn't have a plat number,
No.
actually.
Yeah. but-
9999.
No, it won't have a plat number.
That piece of property is very much a gray area.
Yeah.
But it is not part of this application.
This one.
Okay.
Does the gray area have to do with, I forget the term, but if you use something, presumptive use, is that it? Use something for 50 years?
So
Going
it was established through a plat. However, it clearly has not been under use if it ever was under use, it hasn't been for many, many years.
I mean, by the ranch.
Or under public use. It was dedicated as a public right of way, and I don't know if was ever used as such, other than maybe a little farm road that was used to access these two properties, and eventually just
How wide is it?
66 feet.
66 feet. Given that width and the width of the need, like trail-wise, I could even see working with the landowner to settle where,
Split the difference?
split the difference, actually assign it to the landowner, and I don't know.
We only
No, I
need
think-
15 feet for the trail.
Yeah, but that parcel is,
And then settle
Was-
title to it.
was set aside as a transportation corridor for the local government, and if we think that that's still valid, we should just pursue it and retain it, and if we want to put a trail on it, great, or if we want to build a road on it, great, but like,
Yeah.
that doesn't have anything to do with this application.
It doesn't have anything to do with the application.
Other than it shows that there's a potential workaround for trail access adjacent to the property is what I would say.
But that would be through the county and nothing to do with the Furman's home. Right?
Other than if the Furmans wanted to protest it, you know, if the county moved forward or something like that, but.
That's where some clarity helps.
Would you feel comfortable in agreeing that you won't protest the trail on that side?
Yes, I want to protest it. Something was brought up about that piece of property that's been used for a number of years. It has been. I mean, I've farmed that for 50 years. It has been used. And it's currently being used. So, you know, we need to get our story straight. We're gonna say things.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's part of the ranch. It is. I move cattle across some years when the water's high. There's a good access there. The water or the river flattens out. I can move back and move cattle across there. And having another fence means more gates to open. I've got 4 accesses from the highway. I use 3 of them, 1 I don't. So that's gonna mean every time we stop to get into the property, I've got 2 gates to open, 2 gates to close, because people are coming along. It's just gonna be, it's just not right. It's just gonna be a nightmare, is what it's gonna be. And I question, you know, that area, the whole area from 1700 south is somewhat isolated from the Logan River, say, that goes through Logan. All the problems they're having on the Jordan River with homeless camps, drug dealers, and that sort of thing, I feel confident that that could happen there. And I hate to see it happen. I do. All of the adjacent property owners on the east side are against it. We're against it. The neighbor to the south is against it. We just don't want it. That's all there is to it. We just don't want it. Too many people, just doesn't work. But what it's doing is denying us privacy of our own property. You've all been out and seen the campground that we have. We enjoy that. Why should we be denied that?
Even if the trail is through the alders, it impinges on your property, is that what you're saying? That the use of it and the privacy and,
True.
yeah.
I mean, fishermen go through there all the time, cut the fences, you know, they're not gonna walk around or climb over something, they'll cut the fence, goes through the river to separate Alders cattle from ours. And, there are times during the summer when we had electric fence going through the river for separation. Cut it, you know, that's their attitude, they don't care. I've got cattle out, who cares then? Everybody cares then. That dummy, why doesn't he take care of his place? Well, I do the best I can, you know. We maintain fences in the river. That's a big issue, maintaining that river. And then it goes right to 1700 South. It's not just my section, it's Alders too. And, there are logs, pile up, log jams will be in there. It needs to be cleared out. Fence put up, sure, you put in gates to do that, but it's always in the wrong place. So, I can't find, in my mind, one valid reason to do that. I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel. That's the way I feel.
Good to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I guess my summary of that is if this application were not in the middle of a master plan trail, it would probably sail through, this issue would never come up because of the other values there. So kind of hope this is not a deal breaker for the county, but it's the county's money and,
The taxpayers.
the other scores, I think we pass on the other positive scores and see what they can do with it.
I think along with the positive scores is because it'd be hard for that council to interpret, I think we're advising for, in favor or
Yeah.
against, or tabling it. Those would be the three.
Yeah.
You know, it would be helpful or different if we had a pile of applications right here, you know, but we don't. And so part of this, to me, is like first in time, first in line. I mean, these guys didn't wait, they jumped right on it and pulled a project together and brought it to us, and rightfully so. We're debating these issues and trying to figure out what makes the most sense, and I think we're discovering that there won't be a perfect project. And we're trying to figure out, you know, is there leverage that the county can apply, you know, to make projects even better than when they came in. So, Kendra, what are your thoughts? I'd like to know.
Well, I mean, I gave it a 15 in the scenic vistas, and I think there's an argument to be made for scenic vista being public access, and so even if the trail is only passing near the property, having that on one side of you, even if the highway's on the other, is worth it in terms of having the space still open. The fact that there is an alternative, I think that is incredibly important to keep in mind. And I get it that people are saying they wouldn't use it because it's near the highway, but it is such a small section of that trail. I don't think that is a big deal. I ride my bike all the time. I would use that trail, and yeah, it's a very small section that we're really arguing about. So yeah, I don't think that negatively impacts the application that they wouldn't allow a trail through their property. And it still has value to the trail, just having it nearby and stay open and green so that people using the trail can appreciate it.
That's a good perspective.
Well,
I haven't heard yet.
yes, thank you. To be clear, through the conversation that we've just had and heard from the property owners, is that off the table though? If we're looking at that piece, that old right-of-way piece, and they're claiming ownership of that piece, and we're gonna fight, and that's gonna be a kind of a deal breaker for them, how would we even bring the trail over from the highway to the river, and at what point? So to me, that makes the opportunity less interesting because of that. And as a guy who loves trails, I want to support projects that give us more access to trails. And it's disappointing to me to hear that. You say, I wish we had a stack of applications so we could judge against. We don't, but we will. And so part of me would vote towards tabling it just to see what else we get, where we can advance the interests of trail users and more public access. That's just my own opinion.
I do believe they were up against a timeline crunch and needing an answer from us sooner rather than later.
I would also recommend, where we're a recommending body, that even if we think it should be tabled for a year, that we would just make that recommendation, or that the committee would make that recommendation to the council, so that the council could decide. Because where the council is the approval authority, I would feel that we as a body ourselves probably shouldn't just hold up an application, but then just make our opinions on those concerns very clear to the council, if that's the direction we wanted to go.
That makes sense.
I agree with that.
Like, we recommend to hold it until we get more applications. That would, I'm not suggesting we're doing that here, but that's how you would like to see it phrased.
Yes, if the committee wanted to take those steps, moving in that direction, I think would be better. And then the council can weigh in and make their decision based on that information, their own judgment, and the application.
I agree. My recommendation would be to move it forward with the full advisement to the council that we think that the master plan ought to have a solution in the process without, I don't think it should go on the landowner's property, but I think if all access is denied, well, I mean, I don't know how that fight ends up going on over that 999 property. So.
Yeah, we're currently reviewing it with our attorney.
I think it'll be a straightforward process. I think the county will argue that they have the right to move this forward along with Millville, and that's probably the way it'll go. And the landowner can certainly protest that and take it to court and that sort of thing, but I doubt that the public's right has been given up, and even though there's not a road there. That's my opinion, just based on, projects like this that I've seen come before me professionally or whatever. I've seen right-of-ways where the adjacent landowner has put their entire business on and the city finally comes along and says, nope, get all of that off of there, and that's what happened. And so, anyway, I think, I feel confident that the county has a right to pursue that. I'm not particularly concerned about that, but I'm not an attorney either, so.
That could happen at the council level as well.
How many feet is it actually?
So
It's 66.
I know how wide it is, how long is it?
We measured it last time, I don't remember.
Remember, is it 900 feet or?
It's not quite that long, I don't think.
I don't think it's that long.
I mean, the 66-foot width tells you it was set aside as a road corridor. I mean, there's nothing else that measures 66 feet
Yeah, that's the only thing, yeah.
in the county.
Well, in my journey in life, I have farmed old right-of-ways. And when it come to showdown time, I had to give it up. So, and the reason, it was a twofold reason. The cost factor and the court system was one, and the longevity of it. And it got to where I'd rather have the fence and walk away. So, That's
Those
been
are
my
tough, those are tough situations.
Yeah, well, yeah, that, I mean, it's just not 990 feet. Well, well, who knows, but you're talking a hell of a lot of money and a lot of time to protest that. So,
For my clarification then, it was mentioned that some of those north property owners may be interested in allowing a right-of-way along the river. So the Matthews, the Allreds, sounds like the Allreds are not interested. Is there a plan?
It's over
Has
on the
it-
other side, as you get over to here.
So there would be a crossing
yeah.
here,
Mm-hmm.
and we have interest from the Alders that say that that may be a potential?
We're currently negotiating an MOU with them right now about putting the trail along
Okay,
there.
well, that makes me feel better.
yeah.
All right along the highway to be able to get.
To do that,
get-
right? That's what I
get
was
back
thinking,
over
yeah.
In the back of your mind, if county can't enforce its right of way through the easement, maybe you negotiate a strip with the alders. But that's 2 steps down the
So,
road.
yeah, I think the elders are all on the west side of the river. And so it's really just getting from the highway across to the other side of the river to the alder property. And it is possible, like, for whatever reason, if we're not able to build it down the old right of way, as those other parcels come in for development, we could force them if they choose to do that. But as of right now,
I wouldn't vote for that, but you could.
they haven't indicated their willingness, and it'd be up to Millville, because they're within Millville City. And that's something that we would,
Yeah.
that we've already talked to Millville City about, which,
Yeah, I'd rather hear the word negotiate with them.
yeah.
Yeah, it all comes down to that.
Potentially to bring it over.
Fortunately, you play the cards you have sometimes.
I do kind of feel like,
Exactly.
you know, as a recommendation body, you know, that's what we should do. We should either move forward our recommendation or our lack thereof and let the council dictate conditions. I kind of don't want us to get all wrapped up in that, the sort of political aspects of the project. I would love to just evaluate this project based on its merits, and what we've heard is the landowner's not interested in providing this additional public access, and so it's been scored accordingly. And if there was an exact replica of this application where the landowner was supportive of public access, then that project would score higher, and we could say, we recommend this one over this one, that sort of thing, and we're just not there.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's fair to sit around and wait, or make these folks wait personally, but
I do think there is another factor coming down the road is who are the participants and how does that participation stack up?
Yeah.
And that's another thing bridge that I think comes back to this committee as we assess the overall $20 million as well. So, and that would be in the month of June or July, it sounds like, that we would be doing that. So, I mean,
can I ask real quick, Stephen, like, you know, I haven't heard of any more applications being submitted, but what are you seeing? Are you getting calls
Yeah,
or?
I'm getting calls. I know there's about 3 or 4 in the works. So we have this one that's been applied for, the Porter one that we looked at last time, that's been applied for. And then, like I said, we have a handful of others that will likely come forward in the next couple of months. Nothing, I guess, some of it is property that you may know of, and some of it isn't. Like, I had somebody who invited me to go look at his property just last week, who owns a little piece, kind of in the downtown Logan area, and that wants to put it under conservation. So I think we have a variety of big farmland to, 5-10 acre pieces in the middle of towns and cities.
Okay. And, I mean, it's not, we're not getting a tidal wave of interest, I would say. It's sort of just
No,
sort of trickling in is what I would say.
Yeah, a few phone calls every month, and some of them I never heard back from, and others have called me with follow-up questions and sound like they're getting their applications
Great.
prepped.
Let me ask Gabe, are you hearing interest from other property owners?
Yeah, I would
In
say,
your work-
you know, we get calls every month from landowners that may be interested in doing a conservation easement. A lot of them are agricultural landowners.
Yes.
A lot of them, you know, public access is a question that I ask landowners. You know, that is a public benefit as well as open space and scenic vistas and agriculture are all public benefits. And oftentimes, public access just simply doesn't work for a working property. You know, I attended a meeting with Summit Land Conservancy a week or two ago, and they have several properties that try to balance the two. And there were several agricultural producers that actually managed some of those properties that had those public access, and it was a significant challenge for them to manage the public access and make a living and manage the land. So I just think that if we're gonna try to, you know, check every box here, it's gonna be incredibly challenging, and the number of projects, from my perspective, from a land trust perspective, will go down.
Yeah.
That being said, I understand if if you need to score zeros in one column because we're not providing public access, right? We're not, so that's okay. But I think if you're gonna try to hit every single objective, I mean, how many properties are gonna have a river on them? I don't see every property coming in having a river on it. I don't see every property being highly visible to the public. So inevitably, you're not gonna check all these boxes. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have public benefits, and it doesn't mean it doesn't deserve a score and a decision.
Back to my question though, I mean, you've heard some interest, but
Yeah, I mean, I get probably 1 to 2 phone calls a month.
yeah,
You know, general inquiries, heard about easements, can you tell me a little bit more about them, have a piece of property?
I'm assuming a project like this, you don't have one like that. Like,
No, I don't-
that's either
no.
this far along or
Yeah, or
this
they check this many
significant.
boxes.
Yeah,
I'll be honest, we don't have projects that check this many boxes.
okay,
You know, some projects are just agriculture, they would just check that agriculture box. Doesn't mean I wouldn't bring them before you.
Yeah.
And you would score them accordingly.
On the trails, there's one other thing that, if I heard it right at our last meeting, there are some of the other sponsors that we want to cooperate with who would actually deduct public access because their interest is in preservation or agriculture. And so if the county insists on public access, the county's probably going to have to pay a higher percentage. And that's kind of reasonable.
yeah,
That's what the taxpayers voted for. And if public access isn't there, then maybe the county pays less, maybe these other guys pay more.
Yeah.
But hopefully the project can still go forward, but.
good.
Can I say one thing? The more difficult it is to obtain an easement, the fewer applications you're gonna have, the fewer people are gonna want to do it. And, I've been at this for a long, long time. And many times I felt like, the heck with it, you know, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Everything you have to go through to satisfy everything, all the, check all the boxes is what I'm trying to say, you know?
Right.
It's tough, it is, but I want my place preserved. My kids want it preserved. It's a beautiful property, it's got historical value, and, my mind, it should be protected. So that's where I'm at. But, you know, I don't wanna be railroaded either.
Right. Thank you. Other thoughts or comments or
Just
questions?
one thought, Catherine's note on public funding, public access. Do we want to adjust our public access score column is one of the lower ones. A score's out of 10, correct?
The scores out of everything's 15 except for distinguished features.
Okay, so it is an equal. Okay, it wasn't clear here.
When we ran the bond, I did not feel like we were communicating public access on every project to anyone. We were we were communicating that there would be this visual thing that we were going for, but we were also going after trails, you know, that was on there. So we sold that there was a public benefit from visually being able to have that experience of visually being able to have green space and open space and agricultural preserves. So I don't feel like we are doing this when public access is not available. I think one of the things that public access was important, and that I don't call it public access here, it's there, is can you see it? We did sell that. Are you seeing this green space? If it's buried somewhere, then it better have a lot of other benefits, because we did sell that there would be wildlife benefits or other things.
Yes.
If you can't see it, there should be some pretty significant other pieces, but that was, our marketing material wasn't necessarily, you know, we had the view as you come in from the valley. That was a piece that we just kept coming back to, and that was that visually you'd be able to, maybe we could still enter the valley and see green space. And so,
Eric, I don't recall, trails being discussed.
it's one of the 5 things. It's on there pretty big, and it was very important.
Before the county money was appropriated.
It's on there. It was on all of this comes directly from the bond language itself.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, I stand corrected.
Yeah, it was on there, but I mean, we didn't portray at all that every piece would have a trail going through it.
Right.
Okay. Sure.
It just doesn't make sense for all properties to have public physical access. But that doesn't mean there's not a public benefit from it.
Right.
And I think we need to make sure people understand that just because you can't go walk on the property doesn't mean you're not benefiting from it.
I'll give you a clear example. As you walk along the Logan River, heading out to Trappers Park,
Yes, yeah.
and you
can't walk on
have
that property.
the fence along the side with horses in it, I get a huge public benefit
Right,
from going along that trail, and I have no access onto that property.
and you don't need access
I
to
don't
it.
need access, but I'm
Yeah.
getting a benefit from it.
That's a good point.
That's what he's saying.
But you can see it because you're on a trail.
Yes, and that's the
Yeah,
same thing
You
with,
can also see it from the highway.
and this property is the same thing. If we're taking this alternative route, you would see it from the trail, and so you get the benefit. It's the exact same
Yeah,
scenario.
as you turn there, if we have,
Yes.
I'd agree.
Definitely.
Well, that's one of the greatest parts of this property is the view shed to the southwest, as you're right there on that highway anyway, so that would be a beautiful trail. It would be a little smelly and hard to breathe, and, you know, car noise would bring it down a notch, but it would be a gorgeous trail if you look.
Just hold your breath.
Yeah, just look to the
Yeah.
west.
So many hats.
The view to the Wellsville is unreal.
It is, I love that.
That was good.
That's right. And that's where the site visit, for me, I mean, how many times have I driven by this property? But that day when we went to meet out there, I mean, it's in my mind specifically, I was like, I'm gonna look across this property as I'm driving to it. And sure enough, I was like blown away. I'm sure what I've noticed a million times, but like, it just really stood out for me that time.
If it
How
wasn't
stunning
there,
it was, like it.
if it wasn't there, you'd miss it.
Right.
There was a big building there.
Absolutely, yeah, you'd have no idea.
Yeah.
And if it happened to be in one of our gateways, I mean, it would, of course,
Oh, it'd be
score.
a dead ringer.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
so anyway.
Yeah.
I would move that we recommend this property to the council with the notes of the alternative master plan trails provided by the planner.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion to recommend to the council that they approve funding for the Elkhorn Ranch Phase 2 conservation easement?
I think it's too specific to approve funding because we don't even know what amount this is and who
True.
the participants are in
So
it,
recommended to Phase 2.
to phase 2.
Got it. Okay. And there's been a second.
I'll say, can I get a little clarity? You mentioned the alternate trail alignment. I just want to clarify what the Cosac means by that recommendation, so we can communicate that.
I think that the council has full understanding of what is happening, what is required to continue that trail through.
I would suggest if this gets complicated, that we have the motion in writing somehow, if,
Yeah, maybe you put it up, maybe you put it up, after you draft it there.
and I'm happy to vote on that tonight, but I would like to go back and resolve something on the, gateway.
Yeah, we'll take an opportunity while Stephen maybe drafts up the language and we can, have
He
further
clarifies
discussion on the,
Read your mind.
motion. And, yeah. Go ahead, Claire.
As I look at our score sheet, I'd actually flagged it before to be discussed, and then for some reason, I didn't bring it up. But the score sheet where it says preserve open lands near valley gateways, the next line then, I think, I disagree with. It says the location is seen from major gateways. Well, the whole valley can be seen from the major gateways. So I think that doesn't meet anybody's qualification to discern one property from another. And I don't think, that's not what I had in mind when I scored it. I'd rather just remove that sentence. And so that this section was talking about the immediate gateway properties that allow us to have access to the whole valley. And I think that's why we have zeros and 15s there,
Yes.
is we're reading that differently.
That was my exact issue, was
Yeah.
that second line, seen from.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it says, yeah.
Seen from the gateways is a piece of it, and there could be a score there, but not a full score. It's near valley gateways that would be closer to a full score, in my mind.
Or within the designated valley gateway.
And in my mind, declining exponentially as you
Yes.
move a mile or two away, but that's part of the scoring process.
There are some very large green areas that I think are pretty valuable, provided they can be seen from the gateways, and kind of add to that, meaning,
But is that Vista, is that the first
meaning
category?
the USU farming area that's now getting taken out and built. To me, that's part of the gateway experience that you have,
Yeah,
and that we're losing when there's 3 metal buildings going up on it.
yeah.
I guess I'd like to see a differentiation between gateways and vistas. I think I hear a description of vistas in that language, and maybe we adjust the weighting accordingly, but.
I agree with what you're saying, Claire. I would like to,
So we can compartmentalize them a little bit.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't hurt to continue the discussion on those two components, and if we've gotten those worded correctly or
Yeah.
scored correctly, that sort of
We're
thing.
learning
I
as
think.
we go here.
Yeah, absolutely, and
Yeah.
and what I think I hear you saying is, we should take a look at those, not necessarily that we should change the momentum of this particular application, but that it has pointed out maybe some discrepancies in how we're viewing the different categories that could maybe be cleaned up a little bit with the wording that we're using and just a better understanding of what our expectations are for these.
If we focus the gateway project just on the immediate gateway parcels and narrow it to that,
Yeah.
maybe that points possible goes to 15 and the other 5 goes up and we do 20 on vistas. We just
Vista opens it up more.
opens it up more, a little more. And so maybe
You're
some of
giving
those,
gateways a lot of weight, it's a narrow project, it's narrow.
yeah, there's not that many of them.
Yeah.
So maybe
And they're-
15's too high there.
Well defined or
Yeah,
something.
the Wellsvilles on the Furman property tells you that this is as good as a gateway right here, you know, in my mind, when you look at it.
Yeah.
I think it's just how
Vista
many
needs to
people
carry
benefit from it.
Yeah. Vista, in my mind, needs to carry more weight than the narrow gateway.
Yeah, and maybe we adjust the rankings there. And maybe, before we get too far down this, maybe the public access would have a higher rating if we're hearing feedback from the council that it's a deal breaker. Maybe it's not, but just something to keep in mind as we go ahead. We just kind of averaged them out, but maybe we'll learn and we'll adjust these.
Yeah, I think this is a great example of, you know, sort of a living, breathing scoring system that we're using.
Knowing the input from some of the council members, I think they are not gonna look for public access on, some of them from the rural areas are not gonna look for public access on all of these projects, so.
Yeah, I think we'll hear a variety of opinions.
Yes.
And they
From
wouldn't
the
on
council.
this one if it wasn't right in the middle of a master plan trail.
Yeah.
Yeah, wouldn't even come up.
Well, the people that are calling on public access don't have a lot of property. They're calling because they're stuck in a subdivision and that they want to be able to be out. In other words, they're picking up the phone and say, I want public access for my tax dollar.
Yeah.
And the farmers are saying, it don't work. We can't give you public access and give you open space at the same time.
Yeah, and I think we're looking for, I mean, hopefully there's a few compromise areas with that money, the trail money, where it can go along something and still kind of be a win-win.
Yeah.
But it's gotta be a win-win, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I have the recommendation
Okay.
up on the screen, and please edit it as needed. But my understanding was recommend to the county council to approve the Elkhorn Ranch Phase 2 open space application to the second application phase, noting that the council consider the alternate trail alignment contained within the staff report.
I move that.
I second.
And so, my only question, and I hope this isn't gonna confuse people, it did catch me a little bit. Obviously, this is Elkhorn Ranch Phase 2 Conservation Easement Project, right? But it's not Phase 2 of our process or whatever, and so, I think that's the way the application came in, so I'm not saying, that we need to change it necessarily, but like, that's caught me, it's thrown me off a couple times where I've wanted to say, Stephen, this is Phase 1, not Phase 2, and you keep saying Phase 2, but.
You can put it in
That-
quotation marks, so
yeah.
it's clear that that's the title of it.
You can italicize it.
Or we could just drop Phase 2 out of that title or something like that. even though
Or
it's
that
on
we
paper.
approved Phase 1 of the Phase 2.
You guys aren't making it easier.
Fix that. I think the last clause is, I don't understand exactly what it means. I don't know that all the council members would know exactly what we mean.
Well,
by
that's what I'm saying, that as it's taken by Stephen or whoever, as they receive it, that they get the same update we got. That they're shown the same thing we were shown.
It's my understanding, as I present this to council, it wasn't a strong recommendation one way or the other. It was more of a, we understand this is an issue, we want the council to consider it.
Yes,
That's how I interpreted it.
yes.
Yeah, I don't understand what, the clause I think is ambiguous. It could be, we understand it sitting here, but somebody else, I think, could read it several different ways.
We're relying on you to come up with the right wording, Claire.
We're just asking them to consider it.
Consider what?
Well, they can refer to the staff report.
I mean, I disagree with the staff suggestion on that. That's part of my concern here. I don't think there should be a side condition.
Well, I think there needs to be a resolution. I think any time you've got a piece of property that has some ambiguity to it, transactions should clarify that ambiguity. I don't think we should leave that ambiguity.
But that property is not in the application. It's outside of the bounds.
But this affects all future, let's just say we didn't approve this application. It becomes a development. If it becomes a development, there's a trail along that river. And did we do the public a disservice by approving this application and there's no trail anywhere there ever. And there's we have 2 terminal ends to it ongoing, with the purpose of this committee to preserve open space, preserve agriculture, wildlife, and trails. We're not asking the landowner to put a trail on his property.
Yeah. I'm just not comfortable leveraging the applicant and the application.
We're not doing that. We're telling the council, we're giving this to the council and noting that this is an issue.
I think it
That's
could
not what
also,
that says.
but I
I'm
think
not sure what that says still.
giving the council that information could also support the application, in that if the council looks at it and says, oh, there's no public access, why did you recommend this? Well, if they have that report, they can see, oh, there's an alternate, and so they have the same information we have to understand why it was moved forward. So I think just we're not telling them that they need to do this, just making sure they have the same information.
Okay.
So they don't ding the application for not giving public access at the same time.
Okay, there's 2 parts to the alternate. The one part is the alternate along the highway, and let them know about that. That's in the staff report, et cetera, et cetera. Second part of the alternate, though, is pressing the legal issue, and that's the part I'm not comfortable with. Totally comfortable with the first, but I'm not comfortable tying the resolution to the legal issue, holding it hostage, holding the landowner hostage on that. So,
If it said, noting that the council consider the potential alternate trail alignment contained within the staff report, does that help at all?
I would start with noting, what do we mean by that? What does consider mean? I think we ought to make a recommendation. Our recommendation is A, B, and C.
How about that the council pursue the alternate trail alignment contained into the staff report?
And again, which part of the alternate? There's 2 parts. I agree with one along the highway, and I don't agree with the condition on the other. But there's, 6 other votes here, so I'm fine with that.
I'm not asking us to propose a condition or not propose a condition. I think they need to be
Yeah, but
aware.
the condition is contained within the staff report.
But that is the staff report that this refers to. See, it's referring to staff report, which includes the recommendation of the condition.
Like I said, it becomes this.
Do we need that second clause? Do we even need it?
I don't know if we even need it or not. It's not contained in the application. The property.
I mean, the staff can represent their views.
As well as ours, I think.
And
Through the discussion that we've
can be
had.
our view, and they'll both be represented.
It's gonna be pretty clear, the council is involved in, so many decisions, and, the master plan, they're already well aware. They're gonna look at this and know why we scored it the way we did, and it's gonna be very clear, I think. We may not need that language.
I kind of like the idea of maybe striking the second part of this,
I do too.
but I don't know how you guys feel as well. I could vote for it without that on there.
Maybe we refer to our scoring here, which reflects 0s and 1s and 2s and 5s on public access.
Yeah, I think
Maybe that could be the reference.
the reference is their scoring process.
Well, they should be looking at our score. I hope they're looking at our
We'll
scores.
plan on
We
attach
don't
the
need to
score
tell
to
them
the
look at 'em.
And we'll plan on including the scores to the council.
It'll be clear. what
And
the issue
Stephen's
is.
gonna, give them a full,
Background on it.
yeah.
We're just moving it to the next step. That's why we're here.
Question is for you, Eric.
I just hate seeing that we have terminal places and no resolution. And this could set a permanent terminal ends to this thing ongoing. Instead of I just think about, if you went back in time, people talk about the Boise Greenbelt Trail, right? We don't have one through Logan because it was never thought of early enough. Can you imagine from the mouth of the canyon all the way out? That would be a gem of the whole valley. And we approve this, which I think it should be approved. I think the land should be approved. But in so doing, we bound this opportunity, if that isn't resolved, perpetually, possibly. But there isn't an out around alternative. I'm not even saying on the landowner's property, but just somehow it needs to, it doesn't need to be on, what we're saying, it doesn't need to be on the landowner's property, but it could be a long-term mess. So,
If we said something, instead of noting the staff report, because we're uncomfortable with the conditions within the staff report, that's my general impression. If you noted something that to take consideration of the trail connectivity in the area, would that language be more?
I would support that.
Well,
That's general enough that they would know from our body that it's an important part of open space is trail connectivity.
How about this, so we keep it internal and focus on our scoring, noting that a resolution of the trail master plan might increase the public access scoring from Cosac.
well, it doesn't, but there's no public access still.
Well, whatever resolution is in
I
your
think-
mind is what
yeah.
I'm talking about. If that issue gets resolved, whatever that issue is, our scores would go up. So we're giving them a scoring, we got a bunch of zeros there.
But it's
Noting
still
that
not
those scores
public
would go
access,
up.
is it? Have we increased public access by that changing?
Oh,
By a resolution to travel?
in my mind, if the applicant came in and said, hey, I'll let you put a trail through my property, my score goes from 0
Oh, yes,
to
it
15.
goes to 15
Yeah, that's what I mean.
in a heartbeat.
So what I'm saying is, maybe the note is that if public access for a trail issue is resolved in some way, then the scoring might go up on that issue.
That'd be fine. I mean, I think
Kind of focus
that gets, at least they're aware of the issue.
Aware of the issue and kind of brings them back to our score sheet. Because we probably should explain why there's a bunch of zeros there, and that could go away, but I don't know. If we want to keep it in, that's one way to do it. And again, if public access is granted, I think all I'm talking about is resolving the legal issue, which is not public access. That's just saying that this is not part of my property. And
Well,
anyway, if that issue is resolved, then those scores might go up.
to me, that's that last piece that he just typed. I mean, that's what the 0 means on the score sheet. And obviously, with if there were public access, we would have rated it higher. So I don't know if that helps me at all. Something about just noting this is a critical trail piece in the master plan, or a critical connection piece. And that's all, just to note that,
Yeah. Just note it in any way.
and not have any conditions, just a notation, because I want them to consider that. Personally.
Noting that it would be a more, that its value would increase even more if the trail issue were resolved.
Well, we are terminating the master plan by agreeing to this. And our job is to take into account, one of the things that we had on the
Yeah, is that true though? I mean, the county's very confident that they have right of way. And if they don't, they could negotiate with the alders to get right of way.
No, the alders aren't there. They have the alders agreement, but they can't get to the alders property.
Alders
all
property
red,
goes
all
out for the
red.
highway, doesn't it?
All red's on the highway.
I'm
Am I
not
wrong?
sure,
The east side is the all reds.
not sure it goes through there.
The west side of the river is the all reds. The east side is,
Stephen can answer this.
Yes, so on the east side of the river, we currently do not have any property owner that has been willing to grant us access through their property to connect to the west side. On the west side of the river, the Alder property, the property owner has indicated, though hasn't officially agreed to anything at this point, they have indicated the willingness to allow a trail to be put on their property along the river. And so the gap is getting from the highway
To the alders.
to the Alder
I misunderstood. I thought the alders went right to the highway. Okay.
And so I think by doing this, we, once there's a conservation easement on there, there will be no access across that from A to B.
Well, there would not be an easement on the contested right of way. That's not part of this.
Yeah, and whether it's contested or not, that's what we don't know. I just want them to know what their situation is, the council to know.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. I just like it to be kind of crystal clear what we're saying,
Yeah,
somebody.
which is why I would still advocate for just keeping it simple, and not even bringing that stuff up, and letting the staff report and our participation at the meetings, you know, if the council has questions for us, you know.
I just think that comes across as we don't care about it.
See, this is, you're beginning to appreciate, I think, the problem with, public access and conservation easements. I mean, it's a challenge. There will be a handful of projects that come forward that will be supportive of public access, but I think the lion's share will not be.
And, well, and I'm just saying that there is a resolution to this, and we ought to pursue the resolution to this.
Yes.
Without us saying it, says, hey, that access isn't really important to us.
No, I think
We're dealing with a situation with the city right now where there's a lack of clarity, and I think the more clarity you get in whenever you can, the more important it is.
I've got another meeting to get to. I'm in favor of going to the council with it. I gotta go, so I gotta leave.
What language, Regan, do you recommend?
I'd go with, I think we need to note it, and that's it.
That's what I'm good with.
Like the last line?
Yeah.
So I added noting that this property is a critical piece of trail connectivity for the area. That's not great. It's not worded great, but.
I'd take the second sentence out and leave the bottom one. That's where I'm at. But I
Move this.
It's not the property that's important for the access. We're okay without the property. That this area is an important.
yeah,
Yeah, that's.
area
This property lies in an area
Critical.
to trail connectivity, and do we need to say as identified?
As identified in the master plan.
Yeah.
'Cause, yeah.
If we make that a subjective clause up there, it might sound like we're recommending it because the property is in a critical area for trail connectivity.
Yeah.
We don't want to
Yeah.
do that.
And
That's part of it.
we don't, yeah, that's not what we're saying.
Yeah. Maybe it should be its own sentence. We could just say questions about trail connectivity were not resolved within this application, but that we consider that an important consideration for the general area.
I'm all good with that.
Wore you down. I don't want to.
No,
I got it right.
that from the beginning, I think.
I don't wanna-
I'll go follow your lead.
I don't want to do that.
Okay, do we have something that we can vote on as he's walking out?
He's typing.
Trails connectivity was not resolved with this application. Sorry.
Nope,
No.
you're doing good.
Council note that this property is in an area critical for trail connectivity for the area according to the Trails Master Plan.
Maybe area
Okay.
critical to trail connectivity. Critical to trail connectivity.
Okay. To trail connectivity for the area.
I would give staff authority to fix the grammar.
Yeah, sorry, I wrote that on the fly.
After you sleep on it.
Essentially,
Thanks, guys. We'll see you.
everything not highlighted is the recommendation.
Should we get his vote?
I think we're okay. I'm not particularly concerned. Just because I think we'll have full support from everybody here that's able to vote.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Maybe they'd be 2 sentences though.
Yeah, we'd make that 2 sentences.
No, I mean, down below the last part, replace the comma with,
Yeah. Application.
Yeah.
or just add the word but or something.
No, I think you're in the right direction.
Council.
Should note that this
Trail
property is in an area critical to trail connectivity and delete for the area.
Is in it, oh, you got area twice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
according to the master.
according to the Trails
According
Master.
to the county's trail master plan.
Yeah.
And that kind of leaves, it puts the ball in the council's court to resolve the trail issue. We brought it up. Earn your paycheck.
It is their job.
Which they do every day. I didn't mean anything negative by that.
Whatever.
That was funny.
That's great.
Okay.
Okay, so it's just this last paragraph.
Recommend to the county council to approve the Elkhorn Ranch Phase 2 open space application to the second application phase. Trails connectivity was not resolved within this
Phase.
application.
Let's spell out phase, we got room.
This property is in an area
Here?
critical to
And
trail
it's,
connectivity.
that's the way it is on the application.
I think,
I move that we approve language,
you can just amend your motion.
I amend my motion to, should I say this verbally?
You don't have to say it up to this. Yeah, you can just be,
As identified here on the screen.
yeah.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a second from Claire this time.
A question, what's the next step? We haven't talked about funding at all. Money, budget, does that come later?
Yeah, I can pull up that.
It does, and I think, you know, this is similar questions I had for the applicant and that sort of thing, you know, what are we talking about? Because I think this will be the question that our members ask, it'll be the question the council members ask when it comes before them, what are we talking about? And we didn't develop our phase 1 to consider that. It's just really based on the merits, and then phase 2 is the dollars.
I think
We're
what
still in
this,
phase 1.
Yes, we are.
I remember that now.
Yes,
I think this gives, once it goes through the council, that gives the landowner and the Bear River Land Conservancy saying, hey, it's worth us getting an appraisal to know what we're talking about here and put some numbers with this.
Or to seek other funding.
I think we can pursue an appraisal at that point, but we can begin to pursue other funding, and what we can do, and what we've been discussing, is looking at getting us potentially a broker's opinion of value to determine the top end value of the property, and then looking at other conservation easements that have been closed to determine the diminution, and so that we can kind of give a ballpark of what we think that the conservation easement value is worth. So it'd be kind of like a half step to an appraisal instead of a full step to an appraisal.
And then you will be applying to NRCS, Lee Ray McAllister,
Yes. Both of those programs.
any others?
Those two are the main two that are available.
In our first sentence, that word, the second word "to" is maybe a little ambiguous. We're approving to move this to the second phase? Maybe the word "moving" ought to be in there.
Recommend the county council to,
Recommend the county council approve.
yeah,
Yep.
there we go.
and approve moving this to the second phase, right? We approve moving it from the first phase to the second phase. Is that what we're doing?
Approving the application to move to the second application.
We'll have language once we figure this out for
Yeah.
the future, so this is.
Yeah.
That's right, we won't,
I'm gonna save this.
we're not gonna dwell on it.
I'm happy letting Steven
This is-
sort that out.
This is the problem with being first in line, Joe, you're right.
So we're giving
We have
first,
to work out all the bugs with you before we go on
Thank
to
you.
the next one.
your patience. So we're approving this within we're giving this first phase approval. We're recommending that it goes to the second phase. Is that,
Correct.
we don't have to say that, but that's what we're doing. Okay,
Yes, I agree.
all right,
Okay,
okay with that.
you're still comfortable with the
Yeah,
the language? And you're still comfortable with your second?
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion? Anything else? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries.
Andrew, you voted aye, right?
Okay,
So just for the committees and the applicant's information, I'll plan on talking to Micah Safton, who's the county council policy analyst, about this tomorrow to see if we can get it on the agenda for Tuesday next week.
okay.
And so, hopefully we'll have it on then.
And you'll let us know, and of course, obviously, if whatever you would suggest in terms of our participation at the council meeting or whatever would be helpful, or,
I'm more than happy to present the discussion as we had it tonight and the scores and the motion. But if any member of the committee would like to come and participate, or even if the committee wants to select somebody to do that in my stead, that's perfectly appropriate as well.
yeah, I don't know that we need to give the presentation. I think I'm personally comfortable having staff do that, but knowing about the meeting and the time and stuff like that, I would want to at least be there in case questions did come up for the Cosac or whatever.
Yeah, if you make us aware of the time.
Okay, I can definitely do that.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, could you also make us aware of the time?
Mhm.
If we would like to be in attendance,
Yeah.
able to answer any questions the
Should be
council may have.
5 o'clock next week on Tuesday. I'm not sure what date that is right off the bat, but
Okay, but whether or not you get it on the agenda,
I'll communicate with you as soon as I know tomorrow.
that'd be great.
Great. Anything else, Stephen?
Nope. I don't have anything else other than just to note that our next meeting will be on May 6th.
And then do you know of any new applications or whatever that may come before us the next meeting, or?
No, we may
We just-
have, I have a property owner who's asked me to apply to get on to just do a concept review.
Okay,
So that may be on, he hasn't
Okay.
confirmed with me yet. And then, well, I'm also working with the Cooper family to schedule a site visit.
Great.
So that was the other item that we said.
Great. That
If
sounds
we don't
good.
have an agenda full of applications, I suggest we go back, maybe clarify that gateway language, maybe shuffle points around there.
Yeah.
Let's
And I-
consider it.
And I think, even if we don't get to those kinds of specifics, at least picking up the gateway discussion
Yeah.
from where we left
Yes.
off and, continuing to work on that.
Yeah. keep
As a
moving those-
minimum,
those things
if not.
forward.
There's one other thing I'd like to discuss. Gabe, Stephen, there was some term discussed, the three of us were on the way out the door on small properties. There was some
Development rights purchase?
development right purchase. Can we talk development right purchase next time as well? For small properties that would be too small to go through a big process.
I was just gonna say, the purchase of development rights is what we are doing. We are purchasing development rights.
There's other ways to try to go about it.
Where it doesn't actually end up being owned by a conservation easement.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are a few tools that are.
Where, you know, where that whole appraisal process and that whole process doesn't make sense, but that small piece, this had to do with the, like, where that pivot is, for example, the property. I mean, to go through
On the
that.
Cooper?
Yeah,
Yeah.
to go through that whole process would be really, really huge, but.
Meaning that particular property was so small, even though there's a separate, bigger chunk of property.
Yeah, just looking at that property.
Yeah, by itself.
And there's a number of those properties in these gateways, in some of these gateways, where if this alternative route, there could be a win-win dollar-wise where the landowner doesn't have to go and get an appraisal, et cetera, et cetera. I'd just like to talk about that next time.
Kind of a purchase of a deed restriction or
Right.
something. Okay,
Purchase of deed restriction.
okay.
I drove by that and looked at the wells goes through there. It's a stunning view, so,
Yeah, but I don't know that it makes,
yeah.
it'd be this big process
The
for
whole
the other,
deal.
but,
Yeah.
and that could mean we could, like, down the road, maybe the city could do something with it if it doesn't make sense in that type of a, but however we want to view it, that would give us one additional tool,
Yeah.
so.
Great. Anything else, folks?
One thing, definition to gateway property. My property is gateway to Nibley. There you go.
Yeah. And we had
Or it's a gateway to Logan, coming from the other direction.
Right.
we had some interior we called them interior gateways on the original list, and, that same concept.
But the property scores well one way or the other.
Yeah. Sounds good. Okay, thank you all. We'll stand adjourned.
Brad, glad to see you move.